Alright, grade 8. This is the last video I'm going to be making using Unit 8 notes that I put on Google Classroom. There's also the PowerPoint that you can go through, as well as the examples and definitions in your textbook from page 74, and then this unit finishes on page 81. Alright, so the first example here is giving you the expression 8x to the power of 4 plus 4x minus 3x squared minus 12 plus x cubed. Alright, so we are going to be working with the questions A to E. Write down the expression in descending powers of x, which means start from the biggest going to the smallest. So our biggest exponent is 4. Then we're going to go to x cubed, then the x squared, x to the 1, and then the 12 that does not have the x attached at all. So 8x to the 4 plus x cubed minus 3x squared. Please keep its whole term, including the negative, plus 4x minus 12. All right. How many terms does this expression have? So you have to look at each of them individually. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms. 5 terms here. Alright, then moving on to the next one. What is the value of the constant? The constant is negative 12. It's the whole thing that does not have an x attached to it. Then write down the coefficient of x cubed. Here's x cubed. It has a plus x cubed, which means it has an invisible 1 there. Positive 1, but we don't need to write the positive in. Alright, so then what is the value of the expression when x is equal to negative 1? So we're doing substitution. So we're going to have 8, instead of x, I'm going to have negative 1 to the power of 4. Put it in brackets, please. Plus, now you can use the original or the one from A, it doesn't matter. Alright, now please be careful when you are raising any negative number to an even exponent, you must get a positive answer. And when you are raising it to an odd number, you must be getting a negative answer. So this is going to be 8 times positive 1, okay, which is just 8, plus 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. Then this is going to be negative 3 times y. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. Then we're going to subtract 12, and then we're going to have negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1 stays negative 1, so it's 1 times positive is, so negative 1 times positive is negative. Alright, and then we can say 8 minus 4 is going to be 4. Negative 3 times 1 is just negative 3. Minus 12 minus 1, and then you can just do this all. So 4 minus 3 is 1. Minus 12 is negative 11. Minus another 1 is negative 12. So that's our final answer there. Alright, moving on to the substitution. It says always use brackets. Please follow that rule. So for the first one, it says if m is 5 and n is negative 2, find the values of the following. So instead of an m, I've got to put in a 5, and 4 times 5 is 20. Then 3 times 5 plus negative 2 squared. 3 times 5 is 15. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. So that is 19. And then for number 3, it's 5 brackets 5 minus negative 2. So leave the 5, finish the brackets first, BODMAS. Negative times negative is positive. So it's 5 times 7, which is 35. All right. Please, if you can fit things under here, let's put it neatly. 35. All right. So then you can work on the exercises 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3. The question 3 and 4, 1 and 2, and 1 and 2. In 8.1, 3 and 4 is just simplifying like terms. Very similar to what we did in Unit 6. So go back to Unit 6 as well as question 4. Then 8.2, number 1 is writing down the constant in each of the expressions. And then number 2 is very similar to the top of this worksheet that we worked out, where they ask you various questions on a given expression. Then for 8.3, question 1 is descending powers of x and the degree of the polynomial. Remember, when you are working with a polynomial, you're going to make sure that you look at each term, and each term go and look for the highest exponent. Right, so the degree of the polynomial of this first example is 4. So they say, what is the degree of this polynomial? You say equals 4. All right, then for number 2 of exercise 8.3, it's a substitution. So very much like the question we just did on this page here for number 2. All right, so that's for the beginning of Unit 8. All right, then for this next one, adding and subtracting polynomials. Polynomials, remember, lots of terms. 2, 3, 4, 5 terms. So in this case, we're going to be adding and subtracting the polynomials. So the easiest way to look at it is just to do the example. So we're going to have adding negative 3x plus 2 and, so we're adding 7 plus 9x. All right. So you can leave off the bracket when you're adding, but when you're subtracting, you mustn't. So the first bit doesn't need its bracket at all. It's the second piece that will need its bracket. So we have negative 3x plus 2. Now look, there's a plus touching a bracket. We need to give that plus to each thing inside. But a plus times a positive is just positive 7, plus times a positive 9x is just positive 9x. So when you're adding, you don't have to worry about the brackets, because whatever's in the bracket will stay the same afterwards. Then we find our like terms. So I have a negative 3x and a 9x, and then I have a 2 and a 7. So we have negative 3 plus 9 is positive 6. Positive 6x. And 2 plus 7 is 9. Right, and then for number 2, we have 3x cubed plus 5x minus 8. We are adding, so we don't have to worry about changing anything. Everything's going to stay the same in the second bracket. So 3x cubed plus 5x minus 8. So keep the bracket, but then distribute. All right, so positive times negative is negative. Positive times negative is negative. Positive times positive is positive. So the 2x cubed is still negative, the 3 is still negative, the x is still positive. So your bracket will stay the same in the next step. So you always drop the first bracket, keep the second one, distribute, send into the bracket the sign in front. All right, so then now we're going to group our like terms. So we have an x cubed, and over there as well we have an x. We've got x's, we've got numbers, constants, all by themselves. All right, so then we're going to work with 3x cubed minus 2x cubed is just an x cubed. 5x plus x is a 6x. Negative 8 minus another 3 is negative 11. All right. Then this one gets a bit tricky. Okay, so for question 3, it says subtract and then do so as the following. So we're still going to keep our first bit out of its bracket, and the second bit must stay in its bracket always. And then we're going to send the negative into each thing in the bracket. We call it distribution of the negative. But now negatives have an effect. So let's rewrite the first bit. Then we have to say, what's a negative times a negative? So negative going into a negative 5x squared is positive 5x squared. A negative going to a positive 3x is going to give me a negative 3x. And then the last one, negative times negative 7 is positive 7. Then you highlight your like terms. And then we can work with them. So you see why it's essential for you to understand the first part of the work we've done this year, with the integers especially. So we have 3x squareds, and we add 5 of them, we have 8x squareds. We have negative 6x's, and we take another 3 away, it's negative 9x. And then positive 8 plus another 7 is positive 15. All right, so for number 4 is exactly the same question as number 3. So we're going to leave that one out. But then if we have a look now at question 5, it says from negative 7x plus 3y minus 4z, subtract the following. So we are starting with this, and then I'm going to be subtracting the second piece. Remember to keep the brackets of the second piece. So I have negative 7x plus 3y minus 4z. Minus goes in to make it negative 9x. Minus goes in to make it positive 2y. And then positive 5z. And then we group our like terms. 7x, 9x, 3y, 2y, negative 4, and 5z. Alright, so we have negative 7, take away another 9 is negative 16x. 3 plus 2 is 5y, and then positive z, 1z. Negative 4 plus 5 is positive 1. Alright, for the last question here, it says subtract this from that piece. So we start with the from. So in the previous question it says from bracket subtract bracket. So we started with the from bracket. So we start with the from bracket and we subtract the subtract bracket. And then again we're going to distribute. We're going to send the negative into everything in the bracket to make it positive 7x, negative 3y, positive 4z. And then we find our like terms with our highlighters. Alright, so then 9 plus 7 is 16x. Minus 2 minus another 3 is negative 5y. Negative 5 plus a 4 is negative 1z. Alright, so then you can work on exercise 8.4, 1a and c, very similar to what we just did, 2a and d, and then question 3 is a subtract bracket from brackets. You can even try question 4 there as well. It's another word one, which is always good to work with. Alright. Alright, grade 8, so the last page of this unit 8 is called the distributive law. Distributive comes from the word distribution. And distribution means we're going to share out, we're going to pass out things. So when we're working with, let's say, products in a company, there's a distribution section that will ensure that all the products get packed into trucks and get distributed or sent to the different shops. So it's the same thing here, but we're distributing numbers or variables, letters. So in this first example, it says 2 into n plus 3. You then make sure that the 2 is the products, the n plus 3 are the shops. So each shop needs the product. So 2n, 2 times 3 is 6, positive 6. So each thing in the bracket, in the shop, each shop must get the product, the 2. Product means multiply. We are multiplying here. So we cannot do algebra expressions without BODMAS, okay, because n plus 3 will not work out because they are not like terms. N plus 3 is n plus 3. It's like pencil plus banana. It's just a pencil and a banana. They can't work together. So we have to bring in this distributive law. We can't just rely on our normal BODMAS. Okay, so we've got to use BODMAS where we can, but otherwise we've got to distribute. Okay, so here's now with integers and exponents, and when it comes to using variables going into the bracket. So I have negative 9k. So that's the product that has to go to each of the shops. The shops are the k and the negative 2. So the first product needs to go to the k, so negative 9k times k. Now remember, when you're multiplying the same letter, you add their exponents. So it's going to be negative 9, because the k didn't have any numbers in front of it, no coefficients, just the coefficient of 1, so it stays negative 9. K times k is k squared. Then when we're distributing in the negative 9 to the next shop, the negative 2, remember when you're working with integers, numbers go to numbers, negative times negative makes positive 18, 9 times 2. There is no other letter, so it stays k. So please be very careful with your signs. Negative times negative makes positive, and negative times a positive will stay a negative. All right, so let's start working on these ones, multiplying expressions. All right, so then for these next examples, I'm just going to do them underneath. So 5a squared times 3a cubed. So 5a squared times 3a cubed. We multiply numbers to numbers, and when we're multiplying the same base with variables, we add their exponents. For number 2, negative 2xy cubed times 4x to the 4y2. So we're multiplying numbers by numbers. Negative 2 times positive 4 is negative 8. X's by x's. X to the 1, x to the 4 makes x to the 5. Y's and y's makes y. 3 plus 2 is also 5. All right, then number 3. Now this is a distribution one. So in the brackets, let's check if we have like terms. A plus 2b. No, they're not like terms, so we have to distribute in. And remember, 3 is like a product in a shop or in a factory. It needs to be given to each of the shops. And so product means multiply. So 3 times a is 3a. 3 times 2 is 6b. There's no other a's or b's in front of the bracket, so the a and the b must stay the same. It's just the numbers in front that change. Remember, there's an invisible 1 in front of the a there. So that's why it's 3 times 1 is 3a. Number 4. Careful, we've got a negative 6 now. So negative 6 times 2 is negative 12x's. Negative 6 times negative 3 is positive 18y's. Again, there's no letters with the 6, so the letters stay the same in the brackets. And always check within the bracket if there are like terms that you can fix up first. Okay, number 5. Negative into x minus 3y plus 2 bracket x minus 4y. If we check in our brackets, x minus 3y, they're not like terms. X's and y's are different, and x's and y's in the second bracket are different. So we're going to distribute. This is actually a negative 1. Negative 1 times x is negative x. Negative 1 times negative 3 is positive 3y's. Then we have a positive 2 going in, which is positive 2x. Positive 2 times negative 4 is negative 8y. Then we look for our like terms. So negative 1x plus 2x's is just an x. Positive 3y's minus 8y's is negative 5y's. All right, then for the last one, we've got to say 3 times negative 2p is negative 6p. 3 times positive 4 is positive 12. Then we have negative 2 times p is negative 2p. Negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6. Then you find your like terms. Negative 6 minus another 2 is negative 8p. 12 plus 6 is 18. And that's it for those first 6 questions. Now we're going to move on to the rest of the worksheet. Alright, so going to the division in expressions, we're going to do a couple of things differently here. For number 1, instead of division, I'm just going to write it as a fraction. It's easier to see. Right, so 5 goes into itself once, into 10 twice. And remember, when we're dividing the same base, we can subtract their exponents. So it's going to be a to the 6 minus 3. So a 3 all over 2. A cubed all over 2. That's your final answer. Then for number 2, here's where we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to undo the distribution. We're going to try to find a common factor between the two numbers 9 and 6 at the top. So what goes both into 9 and 6? It is 3. So now imagine dividing each of these by 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3a. 6 divided by 3 will be 3, square 2p. And that's all going to go over 3. Now you can check this out to do if you just do that here. You can do reverse distribution, which we call with more in the rest of the algebra sections, but this is just starting. And then you can say 3 divided by 3 is 1. We have left. Alright. What is common number-wise? But there's also a common letter. Y. So you can make little division fractions on the side. This is still all over 3x, but then they can cancel, and you're left with x minus 2 minus 4y, which is often nicer just to write the letters first and then the numbers. Right, so now for number 4, we have 6x plus 2 over x. Now at the top we could take out a common 2. So look what I've done here. I've said 6x divided by 2 is 3x. 2 divided by 2 is 1 all over x. But then this can't cancel each other out. So in actual fact, there's no point in doing that at all. Our question cannot be made any simpler. So we can leave it as is. There's nothing else we can do with it. So for number 5 now, we can cancel the 2's top and bottom. And we're left then with x minus 3x squared all over x. And then at the top, I can see I've got an x there and an x there. So I could take out a common x. If I take it out completely from this bracket or from this bubble, I have to replace it with a 1. And if I take it out of the second bubble, it's negative 3x squared all over x. We'd cancel out one of the x's. We'd be left with negative 3x. Make sure that you could possibly distribute to get back to your previous step. So x times 1 is x times negative 3x is negative 3x squared. Alright, so then for this last step, we can cancel our x's out, and we're left with 1 minus 3x. We will work more in class with these once you get back from this break, and so if you're a bit confused with the factorization, we will spend a lot more time with it in class now, but also a little bit later in the year, going into term 3 and term 4. All right. So for the last exercise, the mixed exercise, it's combining a whole lot of these concepts. All right. So the first two is 3 times negative 4 is going to give me negative 12. A times a cubed, add your exponents with the same base, and then b hasn't got a friend there, so it just stays b. Then for question 2, I'm going to rewrite it as a fraction instead of the division, and it's easier to see then. So 25 divided by 5 is 5. Leave the remainder on the top. X cubed, x to the 1. When we are dividing, we subtract the exponents. And when we have the same thing top and bottom, we subtract the exponents. It becomes 0. Anything to the power of 0 is 1, so we leave it off. So 5x squared. Okay, so for number 3, please watch out for your BODMAS. We're going to be doing the division first, so leave the first piece alone. And then we're going to say in the second one, 4 divided by 2 is 2. A cubed, a to the 1 at the bottom, we subtract, we have a squared. Then we have b to the 3, b to the 1 at the bottom, so we have b squared. So wherever the higher exponent is, that's where its leftover goes. And then c5, c4, we have c to the power of 1. Now we can look at combining these ones. So 3 times 2 is 6. A squared times a squared is a to the power of 4. We add their exponents. B cubed times b squared is b to the 5. And then c times c is c to the 1 times c to the 1 is c squared. Right, so please make sure you follow your BODMAS and your exponent rules. Alright, for number 4, it's you look inside the bracket first, BODMAS, x plus 4, you can't do anything, they're not like terms, so we've got to distribute. So here's our product from our shop, so we've got to give it to each of the shops. From the factory, we've got to give it to each of the shops, and so we end up multiplying into, so products, think multiplying, so the product's got to go to both. 2 times 1x is 2x squared. Then 2 times 4 is 8x, because the 4 doesn't have a letter with it. And that's where you leave it. For number 5, we do BODMAS first. Look inside the bracket. 4z plus 3m, can't do anything with it. So we first have to distribute into the bracket. So negative 3 times positive 4 is negative 12. 3 doesn't have a letter, so we just keep it as z. Negative 3 times positive 3 is negative 9m. And then we have our plus 5 on the end. Then we have like terms here. We have negative 12z. Negative 9 plus 5m's is negative 4m's. So make sure you group your like terms. Right, 3 more questions. And this first one, again, check BODMAS within your brackets. Can't do anything, so we make sure that we distribute. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 doesn't have a letter, so it stays just x. 3 times 2 is 6. Doesn't have a letter, so y on its own. Then we have negative 4 touching the bracket directly. So when it touches the bracket directly, the multiplication is implied. So negative 4 times positive 1x is negative 4x's. Negative 4 times negative 7 is going to be positive 28y. And then you're going to group your like terms. So 6x minus 4x is 2x. 6 plus 28 is going to be 34y. Right, and that's where we leave it. Then for number 7, again, we're working with distribution here. Within the bracket, we've got 2a plus 3ab. So 3ab and 2a are not the same, so we need to distribute. So 2 times the 1 from the a is 2. A times a is a squared. 1a times 3ab. 1 times 3 is 3. A times a is a squared. B doesn't have a friend, so it just stays there. And then we have our 4a squared being subtracted on the end. Then you find your exact like terms. You have negative 2a squared now, because 2a squared minus 4a squared is negative 2a squared plus 3a squared b. We can't work with these two now because there is a b in the second term, so they are not like terms. Last one for this video and for this unit, we have a lot happening here. There is 1 section, 2 sections, 3 sections. So this is actually a negative 1 being multiplied into the x minus 3. So 9x times 3 is 27x. 9x times negative x is negative 9x squared. Then this plus 2 doesn't have anything going on, so we leave it. Negative 1 times x, it was directly touching the bracket, is negative x. Negative 1 times negative 3 is positive 3. Then we're going to find our like terms. And then we're going to put them together. So we have no one with the x squared, so we leave the negative 9x squared first, put the highest power first. 27 minus x is 26x, and then positive 2 plus positive 3 is positive 5. And that's where we ended off. All right, so you'll be able to start on the exercise 8.5 now. Questions 1 to 5, you need to practice as many of these as possible. And then the revision exercise, there's quite a few examples, mixing in everything from Unit 8 and also skills you learned in Unit 6. All right, and then when we get back to school, obviously your teachers will go through it with you again, and any problems you're having, and then start on the algebraic equations, and then move on to geometry, the shapes. All right, good luck, grade 8s.